have been multiple explosions near a food distribution point, which is run by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation in central Gaza. Now, the Israeli Army radio had earlier said that the humanitarian aid distribution plan run by the foundation was expanding, saying they were opening a distribution center in the central part of the strip south of the Netzarim corridor. It's an US-Israeli-backed organization set up to deliver aid, which has been criticized by the United Nations. Well, Israeli tanks were seen near the distribution point shortly after those explosions were heard. Hundreds of Palestinians had gathered there, some of them carrying boxes of supplies they'd managed to secure. This is just a day after shots were fired at Palestinians seeking food aid at one of the organization's distribution sites in southern Gaza on Wednesday. And these are pictures from Rafah on Thursday morning. Tens of thousands of Palestinians have been making their way on foot to a food distribution point there in southern Gaza. Crowds of people walked kilometers hoping to secure any of the limited supplies that were available at the site. And this is the location of the latest distribution point opened by the US-Israeli-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation near the Netzarim corridor in central Gaza. Earlier this week, the group began handing out limited supplies from its other sites in Rafah in the south of the Gaza Strip. Our correspondent Tarek Abu Azoun joins us from Deir al-Balah in central Gaza. So Tarek, we're seeing another day of aid chaos unfolding as this organization, the GHF, continues its widely criticized operation to distribute food. Tell us, first of all, what happened in the center of the Gaza Strip?
Well, the private company, here Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, has opened today a new aid distribution point in the central areas of Gaza, especially in the Netzarim corridor, which is only 5 kilometers away from where we are. Civilians, as a result, started to gather since the early hours of this morning on Salah ad-Din Road and started to move to the designated distribution point in order to get food parcels to feed their families. But the Israeli military started to attack those civilians because we're talking about thousands of desperate and hungry Palestinians that started to storm the distribution point there in a very chaotic scene. And it has been as a clear result for the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation's lack of coordination with families on the ground and the very random distribution mechanism, unlike the process that has been widely seen and adopted by UN agencies. UN agencies usually depend and rely on a very verified and a clear distribution mechanism for aid in Gaza. They usually notify families that every single Palestinian registered as a refugee in Gaza via a phone message with the time and the location for aid collection in order to avoid any signs of stampeding or chaotic scenes as we started to see in the new mechanism shared and even followed by Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. But what's happening there in Netzarim corridor is a very chaotic scene that paints a very grim and deeply alarming picture of the humanitarian situation in Gaza. There is a full breakdown of order and law in the territory. People are quite desperate and driven by their hunger and desperation, and they wanted to get any kind of aid. While Israel right now is only concentrating aid flow to the only Gaza Humanitarian Foundation operating in the territory and does not allow for much life-saving supplies and needs to be transferred to UN agencies to guarantee a fair and transparent distribution of food supplies to thousands of local Palestinians who have been crushed by the high rates of hunger in the territory.
And Tarek, let's not forget as well that as people there in Gaza are being forced to walk very long distances just to try to get their hands on some of this food that's being handed out, the threat, the ongoing and ever-present threat of attacks continues.
Yeah, in fact, and this is what we have heard from Gaza's health ministry, that 9 Palestinians were killed and 60 others reported injured while they were trying to approach the designated aid distribution points. They were killed by the Israeli military, as Israeli military tanks along with quadcopter drones started to shoot at them while moving, which means that the journey to get food and aid is quite fraught with severe challenges and security concerns. And elsewhere, there has been a surge in the speed and the velocity of the Israeli attacks on Gaza. 7 Palestinians were killed in Gaza City while they were trying to get food. Elsewhere, also here in Al Bureid refugee camp, 19 others have been killed following a consecutive series of airstrikes hit a residential house in the eastern end of the camp there, which is only 3 kilometers away from where we are. And on the ground, Israeli drones and fighter jets continue to be heard. Meanwhile, the Israeli military is still intensifying and ramping up ground operations as they claim to defeat Hamas completely, but it's adding layers of misery and torment for families who have been found themselves again on the move and right now not just struggling from the soaring humanitarian crisis, but from the threat of being killed at any moment.
Okay, that's Tarek Abu Azum bringing us the latest there that's happening in the Gaza Strip today. Tarek, many thanks indeed.